Obviously, it's JavaScript, but what it means? Yeah, so what are loops? So what are loops in JavaScript or loops? It can be either loops, can be loop for iteration, or repetition. So all right, now let's do it. So what are loops? Loops in JavaScript. So loops in JavaScript loops are just fundamental to programming, and understanding how they work will greatly enhance your ability to write efficient and effective code. Okay. So we have covered conditional statements such as if statement, else statement, and switch statement, which are essential for making decisions in your code. So now, or today, we will explore loops which allow you to automate repetitive tasks, saving both time and effort. Okay. So to begin with, so what exactly is a loop? Okay, a loop. What exactly is a loop? A loop from the word. And so in JavaScript, a loop is just a control structure that normally enables the repeated actions of a block of code as long as a specified condition is true. So this is incredibly useful in scenarios where maybe you need to perform the same operation multiple times, okay, such as maybe iterating over a list of items, processing user input, or even generating a sequence of numbers. So the key advantage of loops is that they help you to avoid writing redundant codes. Okay. Maybe, for example, maybe imagine if maybe you had to print numbers 1 to 100 manually, just typing 1 to 100 manually. So loops makes this task simple and maybe elegant. So maybe let me provide you with an example whereby maybe think of loops as the engine of a machine that maybe keeps working until a certain task is completed. Maybe, for instance, imagine you are maybe preparing a batch of cookies. Okay, maybe you will not bake maybe each cookie individually. So instead, you put them all in an oven, let them bake maybe together until they are done. So similarly, a loop executes a block of code multiple times until the condition you have set are satisfied. So this the loop will continue maybe to run until it hits the breaking point or the condition becomes false. So maybe let's maybe use a real world example maybe to understand how loops may work for those maybe that this their first time maybe with phenomenal programming. So maybe suppose maybe nitatumia example ya nani hapa. So let me just use the example for those on our corner. So maybe let's suppose we have maybe let me use the two people, Guitar and Michelle. So maybe suppose we have maybe two individuals, that's maybe Michelle and Guitar. So Michelle maybe is passionate about learning by statistics, okay, and programming simultaneously. So while Guitar is deeply involved in maybe video editing and graphic design, so imagine maybe Michelle studying by statistics every day until maybe he understands a specific concept completely, okay, and then switching to programming until he masters a particular skill. So this daily routine continues repeatedly, just like a loop in JavaScript. On the other hand, that's Guitar who works on video editing until a project is complete. So, and then he moves on to graphic design, repeating the process with different projects. So in both cases, maybe Michelle and Guitar are in a loop, where they keep performing tasks until they achieve a specific goal. So the only difference is the nature of their tasks, similar to how different types of loops work in JavaScript. So why loops maybe matter in programming? Now that that work. Now that maybe I have given you or provided you with an example, Michelle and Gitao. So now, why are loops maybe so crucial in programming? So without loops, repetitive tasks will be incredibly tedious and maybe time consuming. Let's say maybe you need to add numbers from 1 to 100. Maybe you could write 100 lines of code, one for maybe each number, but that would maybe be inefficient and prone to errors. Instead, with a loop, you can accomplish this in just a few lines. So loops make your code more efficient and readable and easier to maintain. So they allow you maybe to handle large data sets, automate repetitive tasks, and maybe streamline your code. So we have different types of loops. Different types. I remember mentioning about the different types of loops yesterday, but let me just have different types of loop. That's for loop, and then we have a while loop, and then we have do while loop. Okay, do while loop. Then we have the do while loop. Okay, so in JavaScript, there are normally three primary types of loops, and you have the for loop, the while loop, and the do while loop. So each serves a different purpose and is suitable for different situations. So the for loop, So the for loop is commonly used when maybe the number of iteration is known beforehand, such as maybe when iterating over an array. And then the while loop, the while loop is ideal when maybe the number of iteration is not known and depends on a condition that may change during the execution. And then the last one, that is the do while loop. Okay. The do while loop. So what does do while loop do? The do while loop is very similar to while loop, but the only difference is that it guarantees that the code block will execute at least once, even if the condition is false at the beginning. So let's now start with the for loop. Let me just eliminate this one, then transition the for loop. The for loop. Okay. So the for loop. Get out. Live stream. Okay. So then the for loop is an exception programming construct widely used when maybe the number of repetition is needed. So unlike maybe other loops, such as the while loop, which continues until condition is no longer met. So a for loop is explicitly designed to run a predetermined number of times. So is normally useful maybe for iterating through arrays or collection where maybe each element needs to be processed in turn. So maybe let me use another example. Maybe for example, and to me a real world example maybe with somebody. For example, ndio watu waweza kuelewa how for loop works. Okay, so maybe imagine maybe a scenario involving maybe for example, let me say you have Elisa, okay, maybe who works in library. Maybe each morning Elsa is tasked with maybe checking all the books on a particular shelf to ensure that they are in alphabetic order. So maybe let's say there are exactly maybe 20 books. So like there are maybe 20 books. So on this shelf, like Elsa maybe for example knows that she needs to check each one in a sequence. So this task is made perfect for a for loop because Elsa knows that the exact number of books she needs to check 20. So for each book, maybe she compares it to the next one to ensure that the first letter of the title comes before or is the same as the next book's title in the alphabet. So if it's not, maybe Liza itabidi finding itabidi correct the order. So itabidi correct that order. So to ensure that to ensure that she repeats this process until maybe she has maybe checked all 20 books, and since she knows exactly how many books there are, she will have to repeat this process maybe 19 times. Okay, 19 times in some 19 times means the number of comparisons needed. So this repetitive action, like by knowing exactly how many steps are required, is what makes the for loop so powerful in programming. Now, with that example, now let's maybe transition from this little word example to a code example. Okay, let's now see maybe how this concept applies in our code. Okay, and then after I'll just write the code, and then I will just break down each component and explain step by step. And then let's maybe say, for example, let me just give the syntax first. So let maybe for let maybe num, we are maybe that's num1 is a name. We are initializing or loop initialization num1, and then maybe num1. So we are at the condition check. We want to check if num1 maybe is less than or is equals maybe to 20. Thereafter, we want to have to increment that num1, at least that num1 by 1 after each iteration. So itakuwa num1 plus. I remember talking about the increment and decrement operators in our first. Was it when was it? Yeah, one of the days I remember mentioning about that stuff. So then your code will go here, maybe the code to be executed. Itakuwa hapo. Okay, so this does the general syntax. Maybe sasa tuseme executed like that. So let me just display. Instead, let me say console.log into bracket. Let's have our num1 to be printed. So in the first case, you can decide to declare this variable. Maybe for example, say weka hapa juu. Let me say let num1 like that. Then you decide to exclude this let. Weke alafu into this one. It still work. Okay, so let me explain this step by step. We start with the initialization by let num1 is equals to 1. So this initializes the loop counter. Okay, so the loop will start from this value. The loop will start from 1. Then for this one is a conditional check. We want to check if num1 is less than or is equals to 20. So num1 is less than or is equals to 20. So before each iteration, the loop checks this condition. If true, the loop continues. If false, the loop stops. Then for the increment, so now num1 plus, okay, num1 plus, it means that after each loop iteration, num1 is incremented by 1. It will be incremented by 1. And then after we do what? We display our num1, or we print our num1. So let me just open this part first. And see how our output will be. Let me open the console tab. Let me open a console tab. And then in our console tab, we have our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So let me just minimize this one, and then okay, and then script. Let me okay. So hope from that example you can be able to understand how they look, because it is printing 1, 2, 3. So it will print with up. Let me explain. Let me explain again. So we have declared our num1, and we are initializing it to a value which is 1. And then here is a condition. We have our condition check to check if num1 is less than or is equals to 20. And then after each iteration, it will be implemented. The num1 will be incremented by 1. It will be added by 1. So since now our num1 we have initialized num1 to 1, that's our value. That's our value. And then we are checking the condition. If maybe num1 is less than or equals to 20, then we increment that num1 after every iteration. So after every iteration, our num1 will be printed. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3. Instead of just displaying all those values, maybe console into bracket 1, 2, 3. We just use the for loop. So here we have num1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so. See, for maybe let me change, and then say maybe we have 2, then save. So it will start from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 20. Okay, so if maybe we change up 20, I save, itafika 19. Okay, because num is less than to 20, it will iterate until it reaches less than 20. Hope we are together up to that point. So let me give another example. Maybe let's calculate the sum of maybe numbers from maybe 1 to 20. So we want to sum up all these values from maybe just use one value. So that is starts, and then this is equals to 20. The 20 plus 1, 2, 3. So we want to sum all these values to get. We want to add all these values to get the total. Let me save first. Okay, 20. So we want to add all these values to get the total number. Okay, of this value. So in order to do so, we're gonna add one variable here whereby let sum, and then we initialize this to 0. Let sum is equals to 0. Then after that, I remember talking about assignment operator. Do you remember something about the assignment operator? So we'll use the assignment operator. So sum plus is equals, then num1. We want to add each iteration. Then after that, tutasema maybe console.log. We want to print our sum. So let me say maybe sum. Maybe something like our sum is. Let me use that example. Our sum is. And then let's concatenate with that, then to add sum. Let's join the sum and then terminate, save. So we'll get our sum. It will add all these values 1, 2, 3. If you add all the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 until 20, it will give you 210. So that's how we handle maybe when you are asked to calculate the sum of numbers, maybe from 1 to 20. It can be from 1 to 20. It can be from 1 to maybe from 1 to 20, or maybe it can be between maybe 1 and 20. So exchange up and say, let me use 20 itself. Let me use 20 itself. And then I say, maybe up I say, 50. I have the 50. Then save. We'll get our sum is 1080. So we have our 32, not 32. supposed to start from 20, 20, 21, 22, 23. So let me explain it now for those maybe new. So the first thing we have to initialize. So we started with the initializing. Whereby we had to initialize sum to these values to 1. Okay. So so this sum will have to hold or this initialization, the sum is equal to 0 will hold the sum. Then we have our loop initialization. So the loop will start from 20, whereby num is equals to 20. So the loop will start from 20. And then the condition check. So here the loop checks if maybe num1 is less than or is equals to 50. If true, it proceeds. Okay. And then inside the loop, the sum plus or is equals to, so this is the assignment operator. So sum plus is equals to num1 plus num1. So it adds the current num1 value to the sum. It will always be adding. Each time an iteration maybe occurs, it adds. So let's go back hapa kwa iteration. After each iteration num1 class increases by 1. Okay. So once num1 exceeds 50, once the num1 exceeds 50, the loops end. If exceed 50, the loop will have to end. Now leaves imefika hapa 50, then ika end. So our sum is, I can decide and then say 25. Want to build is 25. And then I save. So it end up 25. So you can also decide maybe to count. Maybe you can also decide to count maybe how many you can decide to count words. We'll talk about that later. So that's how we handle the sum. Then maybe you can be asked also to find maybe to calculate the average of numbers, okay, from maybe 1 to 20. So if you want to do it, if you want to get the average, you will have to introduce another variable here, by take to account, maybe to some account is equal to 0, like that, and then to some count plus, and then you have to add another variable that's average for average, and then can decide to exclude that one, and then to some average, average is equals to sum divided by count. Count. And then console.log into brackets, want to print average. Average is 22. So let's also print then what? Let's print the counts, the log, to count the number of iterations, and then some counts. So we had 6. If you count, is it 1, 2, 3? What am I doing? Nothing. Okay, I'm confused. Okay, so we have our sum, we have our new, get the average. The average is 25. Our sum is 135. Okay, that's okay. So to get the average, we can also decide to display the sum by console dot log into brackets, not the sum, actual num, then save. So if I scroll up, takwana 20, 21, 22, so is 10. So we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 6. We have 6 counts. Then our sum is, it will add all these values. Then after adding the values, we have the count look in a sub, how many maybe interaction to make nazo. Then in a divide, we had 6. So if we take 136 divided by 135 divided by 6, we get 2.5. So that's how to get the average of what? Average. Then let's okay, I was forgetting something. Maybe you can be also asked maybe to do what? Maybe to get maybe the odd numbers. Maybe the odd numbers may be between 20 to 25. If maybe you are asked to add the odd numbers between 20 to 25, so I'll just come and exclude this one first and then enter this one. And so I will introduce if statement. If maybe num1 modulus 2 is equals to 0, even, and then into bracket console dot log num, print num. Okay, then save. So let me move this one. So in this code, we started with initialization. It confused Gura. So we had to loop. We have our loop initialization. So we start with let maybe num1 is equals to 20. Then we go for the condition check. We are checking if num1 is less than or is equals to 20. Thereafter, hapa alafu kwa num1 we are it increments by 1 after each iteration. Alafu hapa we are checking if num1, if we are checking the condition about tunasema maybe inside this loop, inside the for loop. So if maybe num1 modular 2 is equals to 0, so it checks if num1 is even. Here is about checking if num1 is even. If num1 is even, it will print even numbers. So the console.log will only print the even numbers between 20 and 25. Between 20 and 25. So nikikuja hapo utapata like print only the even numbers. You have 20, 22, 25. You can also decide maybe after if you want to get the odd numbers. Odd numbers will just change here, work a 1 instead of 0, then save. To display the even the odd numbers. 21, 23, 25. Tuko pamoja. Are you together? Yeah? We can also decide maybe to add the sum. Maybe we say like maybe sum plus is equals maybe sum, not sum, num1, and then I have to declare let sum is equals to 0. I have to initialize that to 0, and then after that we print the sum log into bracket sum, then print. Okay, then we have to print that sum. So we can have 69, the total is 69. So what I'll do here, let me add text up and say the sum is, and then plus, like that. So save. We have the sum is 69, so it will add the three numbers, 21, the three values 21, 23, and then 25. We'll get 69. So that's how maybe if you want to get the total number of maybe these even numbers. So that's how it's done. So unaweza pia tafuta maybe the average, but after the average maybe we have the count like that. Then we introduce average, let average, and then average is equals to sum divided by count. Okay, then we display the average, console dot log into bracket the average is, and then average, like that. Save. Error. Oops, there's a mistake tumefanya. Oops. Oh, let count is equals to 0. Sorry. So you have our average is 23. Okay, our average is 23. Hatukuwa need to declare this variable. Sorry, Paleni. So our average is 23. Then the sum is 63. So if you add this stuff, you have to divide by 3. 69 divided by 3. It is 23. 3 goes here, 3 goes here, 2, 23. So that's how to adapt. It can be either, you can do the same to even numbers. So you have our sum is 66, and then our average is 22. Yeah, I have it. So hope naelewa how mambo. So that's how we handle the for loop. So through these examples nimepeana, we have explored the versatility of maybe for the for loop, from summing the average numbers to identifying odd and even numbers within a range. So this fundamental concept will maybe be invaluable as maybe continue a programming journey, allowing you maybe to handle repetitive tasks efficiently and effectively. So with practice, you'll be able to apply this knowledge to more complex scenarios in your future. So let's now transition to the while loop. What is a while loop? So a while loop in JavaScript is just a powerful construct used maybe when the number of iterations is not known beforehand. So unlike the for loop, where maybe you set the number of times the loop should run, the while loop continues to execute as long as a specified condition maybe remains true. Okay, so this makes it maybe particularly useful maybe when you are dealing maybe with a situation where maybe the exact number of iteration is not determined until runtime. So let's maybe consider, let me use an example of Gitao. Maybe let's consider an example maybe of Gitao. So maybe Gitao has maybe a passion maybe for graphic design. So Gitao loves maybe experimenting with different designs, okay? And maybe he decides to create various logos for his projects. So however, Gitao maybe is not sure how many designs he will make. He just wants maybe to keep creating until maybe he feels satisfied with his work. So maybe this is a perfect maybe scenario for a while loop, because Gitao maybe doesn't know maybe exactly how many iterations will go through. Okay, so Now maybe let's transition maybe this concept into code. Maybe in some let me have a code. In this example, well, let me select num1. Let num1 maybe is equals to 0, and then while into brackets num1 is less than or equals maybe to 20, and then I print. Okay, I want to print I want to print the values dot log into bracket num1, and then want to print. So first tulianza na initialization. We had to initialize num1 to 0. Okay, so this variable will act as our counter. This num1 will have to act as our counter. And then in this condition, we have while num1 is less than or equals to 20. So the while loop checks maybe if this num1 is less than 20. So this condition will determine maybe whether the loop continues to execute or not. Okay. So if the condition maybe is true, the code inside the loop block executes. This num1 will have to be executed. As long as this one is true, it will have to be executed. The console.log then num1. And then after hapo, there's something we have to add, the increment. We have to increment by 1. Increment by 1. Whereby after maybe each iteration, the num1 is incremented by 1. Okay? The num1 will be incremented by 1. So let's save and then go back to our code. Tell us you have it works the same way for loop, but different have some. Okay, it can start from 1 or 0. So you have 1, 2, 3. We have printed all the values. All the values from 1 to 20. Or from 1 to 20. So this is how the while loop work in or functions in JavaScript. So the condition, the loop checks the condition again and again. If num1 is still less than 20, the loop stops. Okay, the loop stops. So after that, maybe we'll have another example. Addition. Maybe let's expand maybe our understanding with another example, maybe where we calculate the sum of numbers, maybe using the while loop. So I will add one variable here to say let sum is equals to 0, like that. And then here we can say sum plus assignment operator plus assignment operator addition plus num1. Then I have to output. Okay, the need to print the sum. So itakuwa the sum is like that, and then let's join sum itself. Sum. So we have our sum is 20. Okay, it will add the name. So then I explain maybe one by one. Then map out tulianza na loop initialization. Whereby we had to initialize num1 to 1, then to initialize pia sum to 0. Then hapa kwa while ni hapa ni kwa condition check. So the while loop checks if maybe num1 is less than or equals to 20. So maybe to this condition normally ensures that the loop runs for the numbers for the numbers from 1 to 20. So I love inside this loop, I've got a sum, the console, then whatever. So inside the loop, the sum is updated. This sum. So the sum is updated by maybe adding num1, adding num1 to its current value. So this operation accumulates the total sum as the loop progresses. Then the increment, and then we are displaying or printing our num1, whereby num1 is all the values, are displaying all the values. Then for the increment name, we have after each addition, num1 is incremented by 1, moving the next number in the sequence. So the loop checks the condition again. If num1 is still less than or equal to 20, it continues. Once num1 becomes becomes 20, is it 20? 21. Once it becomes 21, the loop stops. If you get 21, the loop will have to stop, because it's like the limit. The limit maker, if num1 is less than or equals to 20, you have to stop from there. So if the loop tries to exceed from maybe 20 and 21, it has stopped from there. So this example, I hope from this example, it normally illustrates maybe how while loop can be used to perform repetitive calculation where the exact number of iterations might not be predetermined, but the loop runs until a condition is satisfied. Now maybe let's calculate the average. Let's also calculate the average. So let's add happy to say we have the average. The average, you can also add maybe let count. To count maybe let count equal 0. Let count is equals to 0, like that. Then num1 is equals to ni, then itakuwa nini. Then thereafter tunaweza add the count plus to increment, and then tukuje tuseme average is equals to sum divided by count. Then let's print the average, and then hapa tubadilishe kwa the average, then sum. So it print the average. Print the average between the average from 1. It print the average after summing up all these values, after adding all these values. After adding all the values, After adding all the values, we get the average, because we introduce account in account after each iteration in account. How many iterations hii imeenda from 1 to 20. So we have 20. Okay. So it sum all these stuff and divide by, then we get the average is equals the average is 10.5. So let's also print maybe the console. Let's print the sum, console.log, then the sum is, and then plus sum, save. Okay, so the sum is 210. So 210 divided by 20, you will get maybe 10.5. Is it 10.5? Yeah. So that's how we handle our that's how while loop that's how loops work, while loop works. So through this example, the three example already, kwanza the sum, then the average. Okay, we want to explore the while loops versatility in JavaScript, then whether it's counting iterations, summing numbers, or calculating average. So the while loop normally provides a flexible solution for scenarios maybe where the number of repetition is not known at the start. Okay, so maybe each example builds upon the previous one, showing how simple loops can be combined and extended maybe to solve more complex problem. So understanding maybe how to use the while loop effectively can greatly enhance your ability to handle situations maybe where the exact number of iteration is answered. As you practice and apply this concept, you will find that the while loop is an invaluable tool in your programming arsenal. So let's now finalize na do while. Leo nimeenda haraka, but do while loop. Okay, let me just so do while loop vile nimesema mwanzo is very similar na while loop. So loops are nini? Nasema nini? So the do while loop vile nimesema is very similar to the while loop, but with an important distinction. It only has an important distinction, okay? And unlike the while loop, maybe which evaluates its condition before executing the code block. So the do while loop first executes the code block and then evaluates the condition. So this normally ensures that the code block is executed at least once before any condition is checked. Okay, na syntax yake maybe for example nikiana syntax unaweza kuwa maybe do square bracket is not supposed to be square bracket, ni maybe after hapo sasa hapa itakuwa code to be executed then have our while hapa, our while there, our while into bracket the condition, okay, the condition. So maybe let me tell you an example. An example is a real world example ndio watu waweze kuelewa vizuri. Nimetumia Gitau kama example, nimetumia Michelle, nimetumia Liz, so nimetumia nani example. Let me use wacha nitumie Vivian. Let's consider a real world example involving maybe Vivian. Vivian loves programming but finds it challenging. No. So maybe Vivian is determined to master programming concepts despite the difficulty she faces. So maybe to illustrate how a do while loop works, we can think of Vivian's learning process. So for example, let's imagine Vivian decides to practice coding every day until she feels confident. So maybe she writes a program to keep track of her practice sessions, ensuring that she practices at least once a day. Here is how maybe we can do it practically. So let's transition. Let me transition from the real world example to code example using the do while loop. So we'll use variables here yetu tulikuwa tunatumia and let num1 let num1 is equals to let num1 is equals to 1, and then do into brace to open the brace, then console.log into bracket console.log, then num1 we print, then we have our condition while the bracket. So the condition will be at the end. Semicondition num1 is less than or is equals to 20. Okay, then let's save and see our output. Let me open this tab falafu. Naona mali makosa. Then let's open it like sub. Ukikata hiki nani? Tulisahau kuincrement. Tulisahau kuweka hiyo ni ya kuincrement. So wait. Hey. So let me come back to our code. Tulisahau part. Sorry. Now one amount of one among sheets. What's happening? One plus plus shit. What's wrong? Huh? Ama the loop bado ina run. Wait. I had to Hey, I'm back. I'm back. Mzee tulifanya makosa ukasahau. Unajua sasa hivi ingeendelea kurun unapata like it crashes. Ina crash nini? Laptop ama computer ikiendelea because iliendelea kurun infinitely. So ingepata damage. Ingepata damage. Kama nitumie la pingine. But let's just proceed. Hadi ndo na nini nataka kuini. What I do, acha nimalizie ndo instack next time tuanze loops. Nataka tuanze na nini? Tuanze loop. Let me just wind and do I loop the same thing na nini? The same thing na while. The only difference vile nimesema it only has one important distinction whereby so unaona vile while loop ilikuwa inafanya kazi. So in zake sasa when it comes to do while naanza na kidogo while. If una code ukifika kwa while loop kwa ni mambo na while or loop begin because inaweza crash your laptop. Isipokuwa kini utashangaa what's the problem na kumbe ulisahau kitu moja. Unaona? Usahau kitu moja. So let's begin. Ndio tulikuwa tumesahau kitu moja. So kama tumesahau kitu moja laptop inge crash hivyo. Wacha ifunguke alafu ni. You can just end your live yako kitabu.